1980, Americans spent $3.3 billion playing video games. That's more money than the total combined budgets for the cities of Chicago, Boston, Washington, Dallas, and Cincinnati last year.
It's the video game years, and this is 1980. The systems, the culture, the games.
1980 is here, finally! Thank you.
The arcades blow up from a missile attack.
And it's global thermonuclear war, and it's awesome.
Nintendo gives us games that tell time.
Nintendo Game & Watch, that's pocket power.
And a computer game company bursts onto the scene.
The point of a computer game was to hurt you, to challenge you, to leave you stumped for a long period of time.
Plus, Pac-Man fever, and we're going berserk. So watch out for spiders and avoid the grooves. This is 1980.
Next level.
Pac-Man? Doesn't ring a bell.
Yeah, I remember it. Just seemed inane to me.
So 1980 comes. Pac-Man bursts onto the scene.
The arcade game Pac-Man was developed by Namco and licensed to Midway in 1980. It came out at a time when the most popular games were space shooters and of course more Pong clones.
But then Pac-Man comes along and essentially creates a whole new genre.
It was the first game with a cutscene, the first game with power-ups. It established the maze genre, and it's gone on to influence many games even today.
Some of the first cutscenes, I remember the chase, and that was like some of the first memorable music, I think, that really that people remembered.
For the first time, you have a character that, wow, that's Pac-Man. That's not the Space Invader guy or the asteroid ship. That's Pac-Man. He's a cute little character that I adore.
The creator of Pac-Man was heavily inspired by American cartoons. The Power Pellets, for example, were heavily inspired by Popeye's spinach.
The creation of the Pac-Man character was actually really fitting because the game designer, Toru Iwatani, partially came up with the idea while eating a pizza. He removed a slice of pizza and bam, there he was, Pac-Man.
Well, that's more myth than truth. Pac-Man's actually based around the Japanese character for mouth, which is Ku-Chi, and it's a square, but Iwatani just rounded out the square.
Pac-Man was huge. I mean, it was just a tremendous success, and it was also crossing over gender, where guys and girls were playing it and having a lot of fun with it.
Wouldn't it be cool if I were to create a game that the guys and the girls would want to play together? And really what he thought was, wouldn't it be cool if I could create a game where the girl says to the guy, oh, that looks so cute, like, I want to go play this, and then she drags him over there. And then now we're getting money from both of them, right?
Pac-Man was so successful because it was a brand new kind of game that appealed to both genders.
This was not the most politically correct thing to think at the time, but he thought to himself, what do girls like doing? Well, they like desserts and they like eating. So we're going to make this game called Pac-Man about eating food and eating delicious looking desserts, and everything's gonna be cute, bright colors.
Pac-Man comes from the term paku paku, which is, I guess, onomatopoeia for opening one's mouth and closing one's mouth in Japanese.
That initial name was changed into Puck-Man, because it's kind of like a puck with a mouth. Sure, why not? Looks nice on the side of an arcade cabinet. But when it came to America, they decided to change that name to Pac-Man, because Puck-Man could be vandalized into something not so PG.
Then you have F***Man.
I wasn't gonna say it, but making it F***Man. Man.
No. We would never think like that.
Never.
When you heard the word puck, you never want to automatically associate it with the word
Ruckman? Ruckman? Doesn't even make sense. I don't know why they... What? An F?
Not just your character, but your enemies had personalities. Blinky, Inky, Pinky, and Clyde.
They all reacted differently.
They had their own AI.
That was the key to being good at the game.
Once you go past 256 levels, the game breaks. You cannot play anymore. It's kill screen.
It goes half berserko, where you can't play it anymore. It's essentially the kill screen, but it's not really the kill screen. It's just a big glitch.
Therefore, it is possible to play a perfect game of Pac-Man, where you can get the maximum number of points. And people have done that.
Yeah, Billy Mitchell at FunSpot did the very first and only perfect Pac-Man game, which is every power pellet, every energizer, every pellet, every ghost that turns blue, every point you can get, every special item. How is that possible? But the guy did it.
Pac-Man was so huge and popular for the first time ever. You had video game merchandising on a grand scale.
In the 80s, Pac-Man was everywhere. He was on t-shirts, cereal boxes, mugs, glasses.
There was even a Pac-Man video game.
He got his own animated cartoon series. He even got a top 10 music single.
Pac-Man fever.
Oh, Pac-Man fever.
I got Pac-Man fever. Pac-Man fever. I'm going out of my mind. Going out of my mind.
Pac-Man was considered the very first video game mascot, if you will. This is before Mario, before Donkey Kong, before Sonic, before Duke Nukem. I mean, you had Pac-Man in the early Duke Nukem. Isn't that the guy's name?
Pac-Man with the mouth open. That's like a universal icon for video games.
It's just kind of weird that you would throw in Duke Nukem with all these other...
Pac-Man has gone through that whole genre, past Mario, and they're still making Pac-Man games, and they're making really good ones to this day.
Even 30 plus years later, everyone across the world virtually in the modern world knows who Pac-Man is. So you have what's called a franchise, video game franchise. Pac-Man was the first.
He's the Pac-Man. He did it.
Welcome to Club Atari. What's your pleasure? Break out? Ah, here's something new. Circus Atari.
Cartridges, video chess, football. Cartridge, sir? Fez is here.
We meet again, Fez.
Yes, a little game of Space Invaders, perhaps. What shall we play for?
For fun, of course.
No other company offers you as many different video game cartridges as Atari.
Arcade break. Monaco Gp by Sega, a very early racing game.
The game sound effects are really kind of realistic, actually. You know, when you hear your car pass other cars, you hear the vroom.
The noise, the unrelenting noise was a bit of an annoyance.
The tachometer on the actual cabinet would actually rev up as faster you go, which was really neat, and had light up dials and stuff like that.
It's awesome when they put actual electromechanical functions into arcade cabinets.
Yeah, I mean, and that was early. This is 80, and they're doing stuff like this.
You know, as far as racing games go, it's fine. You're weaving in and out on this road, going by and trying to avoid crashing into other guys.
Have you played Atari today?
This is Andy Leonard at the 1980 Atari Games. Lots of excitement here. Stiff competition in basketball. They have the jump on Skydiver. The human cannonball can't miss.
This is where the key moment in video games kind of comes in, is that you can have the greatest system in the world, but it's the game that people want, the killer app. That's what you have to have. You can have a great system like the Sega Dreamcast. If you don't come up with a game, the people have to get that system. It can be a great system, people aren't going to buy it, it's not going to fly. So the Atari 2600, the problem was it was good, it had some great games and everything like that, but it didn't have that one that everybody wanted.
1980 is when it explodes. Boom!
And this was the boom year.
Why? Space Invaders. It gets Space Invaders, one of the biggest arcade games of all time, and certainly the biggest at the time, on a home console.
And for the first time, Space Invaders.
Like, we could play Space Invaders at home?
So bringing that game over to North America was just, it ranks up there as like some of the smartest decisions ever made in video game history.
It quadrupled their sales, and it put Atari on the map as one of the fastest growing companies ever in the history of ever.
Suddenly, everybody's got to have an Atari, right? And the cool thing is, for Atari that all of the games that they already had out, the current library, well, suddenly all these games are flying off the shelf now too. So games that have already been out and have already been sitting on the shelf suddenly start getting sold just because everybody now owns the Atari so they could play Space Invaders and they want some other games to play.
And now they're really starting to get their feet wet and putting out games. They had Adventure in '79, and they have some other fun games that came out in '80, like Fishing Derby, where you fish.
Bob Whitehead, who had pioneered making larger objects, like his boxers, stepped over and he said, you know, I could make you a shark for the top level. And that's what really turned it into a game, where the shark had like AI and he would go after your fish and you had to figure out a way to beat him.
And you have boxing, which is an overhead like this. It's like this.
It looks
Deal with me, Bean.
It looks like two crabs fighting.
Two crabs
basically
fighting.
what it is. Two angry crabs in a ring.
It basically was what won them that first console war. Okay, that and Fishing Derby. See, it's a little known fact. There's one guy that worked at Atari the whole time. It wasn't Nolan Bushnell, it was Mr. Atari. That's who the company was named after. And he was working in like this magical shop of wonders, and you know, someone would say, I would like to buy a game. And he would say, oh, okay, let me come up with the game. And he would, you know, take his little pen and he would sketch out the circuit board and then wave a magic wand and then poof, the circuit board would come alive with little magical elves that would ting, 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 conk, 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 conk. And they would code in there the game itself to Mr. Atari specifications. And then after about, 3 milliseconds, because elves work fast, man. Poof, they would have the game. There's the game right there. And he would, oh, Space Invaders. I shall sell this and make $1 trillion until Warner Communications buys me out and runs me into the ground. And that is the true story of Atari. Let no one else tell you different. What was I talking about?